When it comes to horse racing, you can never have too much information. With twinspires, you can place your bets with confidence, whether you use handicapping insights like our Brisnet speed ratings, prime power and past performances, the guidance of our experts' top picks, or just choose a name that catches your eye. Yes! No matter how you pick your horse, bet with twinspires. And now you can race to victory with twinspires tournaments.
Welcome back to the Twinspires Racing Roundtable. I'm Ashley Anderson here with James Scully and Vance Hanson to look back at Stephen Foster Preview Day, where we had Mystik Dan return to the winner's circle in the Grade 3 Blame. We'll also talk stakes action across the country and Canada, and also look ahead to this weekend's Belmont Racing Festival at Saratoga. Vance, I'll start things off with you today. Let's talk Mystik Dan, who got back to the winner's circle for the first time since Derby 150. Is it time to take him seriously in the older dirt male division?
Well, it was nice to see him back in the winner's circle after such a long layoff. And, he had thrown 3 clunkers in a row in the Belmont last year, and then the Malibu and Pegasus World Cup. And then he really got back to form in the Lake Wichita Stakes at Oaklawn, just missing in a photo finish. And so it was nice for him to get back in the winner's circle here after the Blame Stakes on Saturday. First time a Derby winner has come back and won a big race at Churchill, I think, since Silver Charm. So that's quite an accomplishment. I think going forward, though, Mystik Dan's just going to have to show a lot more versatility than he has in his 3 big wins in his career, because they've all been basically the same race. Ground saving, just like you see here, he's sitting in 4th down the backside of the Blame, just kind of, saving ground on the inside, hoping a hole opens up near the top of the stretch, and then just kind of bursting through and hoping he holds off the late closers. So he's done that in the Southwest. He did that in the Kentucky Derby, and he did that in the Blame. Going forward, I think he's just going to have to show a lot more versatility and trip, because so far he hasn't so far. And this wasn't an overly fast race either. I don't think this put him in the fierceness and White Barrio category by any stretch. So he still will need to improve, but there are still some big races ahead of him that I think he can win. Of course, we have the Stephen Foster a month from now. He should be a big top contender in that going forward. So good turnaround by Mystik Dan, but as a top tier older male candidate, I want to see more from him.
James, do you agree?
Yeah, I think it's fair to say you want to see more. Definitely a very encouraging performance. Vance was right. He was the first Derby winner to win stakes race as an older horse at Churchill Downs since Silver Charm in the late 90s. I got to give Kenny McPeek a lot of credit, because after that Belmont Stakes last summer, Mystik Dan was off for nearly 7 months. And McPeek brought him back in the Malibu at Santa Anita, and he ran dead last. A bad last. And then he brought him back in the Pegasus, and he was beaten more than 20 lengths in 9th up the track. At that point in time, to me, it didn't look like Mystik Dan was ever going to get back to top form, or it was like a long shot. Let me just say that. I won't say it was impossible by any stretch, but a lot of times you see these horses. He's a Derby winner. How many races can they lose in a row before, they just wrap up on him? So, that was a precarious spot for McPeek and Mystik Dan after that Pegasus World Cup clunker in late January. And, McPeek got his confidence back. You got to give him credit. That took some horsemanship on his part to get this horse back to top form. I thought it was very smart planning, because Mystik Dan had shown an affinity for Oaklawn Park and Churchill Downs last year. He broke his maiden at Churchill, won the Derby, was brilliant in the Southwest, and a troubled third in the Arkansas Derby. So those are his 2 favorite tracks. And McPeek, after a freshening, brought him back on Derby Day in a listed stake at Oaklawn, where Mystik Dan ran a nose second, and really a solid comeback performance. And he continued to build upon that performance on Saturday in the Grade 3 Blame. And I thought he got a little bit lost. It had been a long time since he had a clear lead in the stretch of a race. or in mid stretch. And I thought he got a little bit lost, like in that final 16th of a mile with a clear lead. And Aquarium, who he'd already put away, came back on him a little bit, but Brian had plenty of horse left, and he was never really threatened. Vance referenced, I mean, he got a 103, so that's a solid number. He'll have to keep running faster, but he's on the right course right now. The Stephen Foster's a grade 1 in his backyard at the end of this month. So a lot to like about his victory, I thought, on Saturday.
You mentioned James, Oaklawn, and Churchill. I think that's the big knock for me right now is that he does his best running, well, especially at Churchill. He's 3 for 4, and he broke his maiden at Churchill as well. So it wasn't too much of a surprise to see him perform well. He did have a career best 103 Bristnet speed figure coming off that no second at Oaklawn to Saudi Crown, who's been a little inconsistent in his career, just like Mystik Dan. I do think if you look at that start, the first start for his 4-year-old season was the Pegasus World Cup, where he faced a lot of those top contenders in the division right now. And we'll see some of them this weekend. And I know, Vance, you're going to talk about Barrio and Fierceness, who will be at Belmont at Saratoga. But right now they are a step above Mystik Dan. So I just need to see something outside of Churchill, see him prove himself outside of Churchill. And like you said, Vance, a little bit more versatility in his run style as well. Let's move over to other stakes action that happened across the country, maybe up over across the border. So, James, who stood out to you this weekend?
Well, I was just like looking at this. Perhaps I missed the stakes action for the first couple, but I was just looking at this as other performances that caught my eye. And I'm gonna mention first off on Saturday in race 5 at Churchill Downs, Click It. A quality road filly stretched out to 2 turns for Brendan Walsh, and I thought it was an outstanding win. The actual favorite in that race, Heavenly Summer, who's on the inside here, had things her own way on the front end. Click It, win and got her on the far turn and then put her away in the stretch. And you'll see her drive to a win by about 2 lengths here. This is a filly by Quality Road out of a mare who's by Tappet. And Click It's second maternal dam is by Tis Now, and she's thrown nothing but long distance routers. And her third maternal dam's by Stormcat, and she's thrown like 12 furlong Group 1 types. All stamina in the female family. This filly will keep improving, and we can see it. We'll see it this Friday in the Acorn Stakes. After Good Cheer, who's exceptional in her own right, the rest of that division leaves a lot to be desired. It's ripe for these up-and-coming types like Click It to step forward and make a serious impact in some stakes races, especially if they can avoid Good Cheer. And I think it's Click It got a 95 breaking her maiden 2 starts back at 7 furlongs in her second start. She got a 96 stretching to 1 1/16 on Saturday. And her numbers are going to continue to increase as she gets better and better for Brendan Walsh. I'll also mention real quick a race. Race 3 was a maiden race, and in this race, Steve Asman sent out if the second starter for freshman sire Basin. And this filly got checked early going into the far turn. You'll see her outside in the yellow. She's the 12 horse. She gets checked a little bit right there, got pushed back, squeezed back. And then when she comes running in the stretch, and on the far turn at stretch, she has her head sideways the whole way. She is green and as rank as they come. And just the ground she's making up with her head sideways tells you that at least at this stage in her 2-year-old season, this if has some talent. Here she comes. Hey, she's back there in the red hat. She went wide as the ball off the turn. Now look at this. I mean, Eric Asmussen half the stretch run, just trying to keep her straight, or else she would have run into every horse to her left. I mean, she just could not run straight. but I mean, she's making up ground like with her head sideways. So really, look, she could go straight to a 2-year-old stake off this effort for Steve Asmussen. Looks like got a future sprinting. And I know we didn't tell our producer Lance. I didn't tell Lance about this other mention, but Mercante, I got to mention him real quick. He won that Grade 3 Arlington. You got to give Brian Nippenberg and Jockey Joe, Brian Nippenberg, just great training job. This horse has really come out of nowhere. Won the Kentucky Cup Classic on synthetic, second in the Old Forest or Bourbon Turf Classic, a really good second to Spirit of St. Louis. And then he beats Brilliant Birdie by a neck on Saturday. These Grade 3 turf stakes in the summer, sometimes, they're not the strongest races, but Brilliant Birdie's a serious race horse. Mercante is in top form right now, and he'll be going back to face, in some big-time turf stakes coming up this year.
Yeah, the public didn't really respect Mercante, and Brilliant Birdie, rightfully so, ended up the favorite because he was unbeaten on Churchill's turf. And then that was probably the most exciting finish from Saturday's card, I would say. But Mercante ended up coming out ahead, which we did not expect necessarily. At least the two of us, James and I, were on site, and we were definitely going with Brilliant Birdie there. But very game finish.
Yeah, and Joe Ramos, the regular rider, he's always going to be in there to guide Mercante. He's the leading rider right now at Horseshoe Indianapolis, and he's done a great job riding him in a back-to-back stakes at Churchill Downs this year.
Vance, who stood out to you this weekend?
Well, I'll bring up one of Bob Baffert's stars at the moment, the 4-year-old Nisos, who endured his first career defeat in the Churchill Downs Stakes very narrowly last month, but then came back this past Saturday. And Baffert decided to choose the path of least resistance. He could have run this horse in the Met Mile against the Monsters this coming Saturday at Saratoga, but he ran him instead in the 7-furlong Triple Bend at Santa Anita on Saturday. It wasn't a very stellar field, obviously, for only $100,000, but he really won it the right way. Won on cruise control, winning 121 and change, earned a 106 Bristnet speed rating. So a very good race for him to get back in the winner's circle after enduring a very long layoff for most of his 3-year-old campaign. And Baffert came out after the race and said he really wants to stretch this horse out. He's actually wants to run this horse in the Breeders' Cup Classic. So you'll have to think races like the San Diego Handicap and the Pacific Classic at Del Mar this summer might be on his agenda. And Baffert also didn't rule out the possibility of him shipping east. So maybe he could be a Whitney horse. Who knows? But he is by Nyquist, and he's out of a Bernardini mare. So he does have the pedigree to stretch out. So we'll see what his preparation is like over the summer and whether he really turns into a Breeders' Cup Classic hopeful. If not, he's definitely a terrific 7-furlong to mile type. So the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile is certainly within his range for sure.
And I think Baffert would have definitely gone to the Met Mile if Nisos had won that Churchill Downs sprint. He still ran a really good second, dead heated for second, but. I just don't think he wanted to risk like back-to-back losses, coming back off of like a 15-month layoff or whatever it was. And you're right, Vance. His numbers for that effort were terrific. Not only got that 106 late Bristnet speed rating, but he got a 103 late pace number. Came home real quick, I thought, in that Triple Bend. That is the real question moving forward with him is how he'll do going 2 turns. He has one start at a 2-turn mile that he won way back in last year in February, but distance will be a real challenge seemingly because he's so good. I mean, he is like really good sprinter. So regardless of his pedigree, he's going to have to prove that to me. But that was nice to see him get back in the win column.
Well, I'll mention a couple of performances from fillies and mares this weekend, starting with Royal Spa in the Grade 3 Shawnee for Rudy Broussais. Royal Spa had been racing at sprint distances or 1-turn miles and then stretched out to 2 turns for the first time since her 3-year-old season. You'll see her the 3 on coming from the outside here and got up to win. Sat about 6 early on in this race and proved to have what it takes to run 2 turns. We saw her as a 2-year-old in the Demoiselle. I think she finished 4th that day. At age 3 in the fantasy, she was pretty far back in that race, and then she went to those sprint distances. But I talked to Rudy Broussais earlier last week before this race. He had mentioned coming off a 1-turn mile at Laurel Park. He talked to Michael Sanchez after that race. He said he thought that this mare was ready to go back to 2 turns. Flavian Pratt was available. So that combination ended up proving to be successful this weekend. I do think she's probably going to go back to sprint distances, but she at least showed that she has this capability and is a very versatile 5-year-old who right now as a 5-year-old is 2 for 4 and has a 2nd place as well. So has really come on in her 5-year-old season. And then we have Caitlin Her Greatness in Canada this weekend, who made her 4-year-old debut off a more than 7-month layoff in the grade 3 Belle Mahone at a mile and a 16th on Woodbine's all weather. And she was the champion, the Canadian champion 3-year-old filly last year, also upset winner of the King's Plate, and then just ran away with it this weekend. So she's kind of like the Torpedo Anna of Canada in a way. But really impressive 4-year-old debut, and looking forward to seeing what she does off of this start, especially off that long layoff.
Not only is she like really good, I mean that was her obviously her comeback effort, but Kevin Attard, Kevin Haddard Kevin Attard, he has some options because Caitlin Her Greatness broke her maiden on the main track on dirt, and she ran a really good third to She Feels Pretty in the really good third in the grade 1 Queen Elizabeth II Challenge Cup last October at Keeneland. So she's got dirt form, turf form, obviously won the King's Plate on synthetic and her comeback on synthetic. But, I don't, we'll see how it goes, but there's a chance, he can just ship her to the U.S. and run her in any big race in my mind.
Yeah, you're right. She was 3rd to She Feels Pretty, and we'll see She Feels Pretty this weekend at Belmont as well.
That's right. Yeah, I get her name messed up sometimes, but thank you for clarifying that. She Feels Pretty.
I don't know why. I confuse her with Pinup Betty all the time. I don't know why. It's sort of the same, not really. Well, let's move over to Belmont weekend. Vance, what are your thoughts on Friday and Saturday's cards?
Well, the Saturday dirt races look outstanding to me, the ones especially besides the Belmont itself, the races that are a mile and under on Saturday. Of course, we have the Met Mile, which we've alluded to already. It's a big showdown between Fierceness and White Abarrio. And then there's also a couple other decent horses in there, too. Raging Torrent is a up-and-coming mile or two. Just a Touch is returning to Stakes Company after a couple blowout allowance wins. So the Met Mile is short in numbers, but extremely high on quality. It should be a great race. Hopefully not the blowout type race that we saw in National Treasure win last year when White Abarrio didn't run well at all. But he's coming into the race a lot better form this year than he did last year. And then a couple of other races on the undercard. The True North came up outstanding. It's a grade 3 in name only because they've got 3 grade 1 winners from last summer's Saratoga meeting in there. You have Nakatomi, you have Bookham Dano, and then you also have drawing a blank on his name here. The
Mulligan, did you mention?
Mulligan, winner of the Forego Stakes. Thank you. So that's going to be an outstanding race. And then the Woody Stevens might be the most contentious race of them all on Saturday. 3-year-olds going 7 furlongs. The big names, of course, are the juvenile champion Citizen Bull and Chancer McPatrick, both cutting back to 1-turn distances. But there's at least a handful of other up-and-coming long sprinting mile types that could upset the 2 of those. So that's going to be an outstanding race. And the whole card really is jam-packed with quality, as you would expect. And it should be a great day of racing on Saturday at Saratoga.
I think the Woody Stevens, especially all that speed. I'm looking at the one Big Trust who's moving up in class, but I know Brian Lynch's barn is very excited about this horse, and he'll come from off the pace. So I'm curious to see if we could see an upset. He's got a good price too at 10-1, but he's one of the few off the pace runners in this field. We have Chancer McPatrick too, but I'd rather go with the one here from the rail.
Yeah, I'm intrigued by that Big Trust too. That he beat Fact, who was like in turn 5 lengths clear of third in his debut. In fact, was awesome. He came back last Saturday at Churchill and just crushed him, and he's going to be a good horse as well. So I think this Big Truz has a huge reputation. We were at Churchill on Saturday, and I heard somebody was talking about the just a touch workout. I mean, that horse, there's some people who are going to be betting that horse right into the face of Fierceness and Wadabario. But for my, and listen, the Belmont Stakes, I mean, one of the most anticipated editions of it in recent years. Just outstanding rematch with the top three from the Derby. Got a good field size with 8 runners, I thought, considering it could have been 5 or 6 at one point. And, I like journalism. I like journalism right back. I'll have Baeza in some multi-races wagers, but I'm taking on the Derby winner. Could be wrong, but I'm going to take him on. I'll also mention, as far as the multi-race sequences go into the Belmont, you got this grade 1 Jaipur. It has like a real big-time formidable favorite, potentially. The Pennine Ridge, to me, looks sort of like the Woody Stevens Advance reference, where they're just ultra competitive. Can make a case for a number of runners. But I'm intrigued by this Manhattan. That's the kind of race I might take a stand in. The race before the Belmont, race number 12. You're going to have, I think, Far Bridge was listed as the second choice to Spirit of St. Louis. Those two will both take money. Spirit of St. Louis, two grade 1 wins this year. But I got questions about Spirit of St. Louis at the mile and 3/16 distance. And there's some speed in this race. I like Integration. Integration's last start past 9 furlongs was arguably one of his best in the Red Smith at a mile and 3/8 last fall at Belmont. He won that race handily. Looked like, looked set for a big 2025 season. And Sean McGahee has run him at 9 furlongs, a mile, and 9 furlongs. I mean, let's get to where he's going, which is going to be long-distance races. I thought his trip in the Old Forester Turf Classic was terrible. An absolutely awful trip. I didn't like how he was put on the inside by Frankie Dettori. I thought he had trouble the entire way, and he gets beat like 2 1/4 lengths. So I love the jock switch to Flavian Pratt, who was up for the Red Smith last fall. I think Integration's going to get a much better trip. There's some speed in the field to keep Far Bridge company on the front end. And I'm going to take a stand with that horse in the Manhattan Stakes on Saturday.
I need to look at that one a little bit closer. It does look like a tough race. And we also have weather potentially affecting that one with rain in the forecast. So you might want to.
Yeah, let's keep our fingers crossed on that. It definitely looks like, Fridays could get some rain. It's not a certainty, but Saturday doesn't look good at this point.
Yeah. But that makes handicapping that much more exciting and potential for big payouts. But I will take it to Friday's races, starting with Good Cheer's return off her Kentucky Oaks win in the Grade 1 Acorn, race 11 on Friday's card, and she is rightfully the 1-2 morning line favorite here. She's on a 7-win streak, going for her 8th career win, facing some of the same rivals from the Oaks. You've got Lacara in there at 10-1, plus the Broken at 10-1 as well, who was a good third, I thought, to Good Cheer in the Kentucky Oaks. But then you also have some new competition in here. Look Forward, who was in the 8 Bells, is now going to be facing these Kentucky Oaks runners, as well as, let's see, we have a few others in there. Shred the Gnar, who's interestingly 3-1, moving up in class for Brian Lynch, and could be a pace factor. But whether we'll see an upset of Good Cheer, I do think Lacara is going to go to the front. Whether or not Shred the Gnar can keep up with her and make it a hot pace, that's what I'm kind of wondering in this race. But Good Cheer so far has proven to be the top 3-year-old filly, and we'll find out if she continues to be the top 3-year-old filly this weekend. We also have the Grade 1 Ogden Phipps. Raging Sea is coming off an upset of Torpedo Anna and the La Troyan on the Oaks undercard, and she's the 5-2 favorite for Chad Brown, going up against Candide, who won the Allaire DuPont on Preakness weekend. And then you also have Leslie's Rose, who is kind of in the same spot as Antiquarian was in in the Blame this past weekend, coming off a sprint, stretching back out to a mile and an eighth. And Antiquarian ran a pretty good second to Mystik Dan this weekend. Maybe we see Leslie's Rose come out here on that stretch out in distance and put in a big performance. She was, you know, 2 years ago was kind of one that people were looking at in the Kentucky Oaks, but then trailed off a little bit. So maybe we see a big comeback this weekend. And then finally we have in race 6, the Better Roses, a good matchup with Scylla, Ways and Means, a couple of other good sprinters in there. But I do think it's probably Ways and Means is going to get the job done here on a 2-race losing streak. But looking at who else potentially going to the front, I think maybe this is where we see Ways and Means get another win. It's been a little while, but I think she can get the win this weekend.
She seems to do her best running in New York, Ways and Means. And, power squeeze, a new face in the crowd. Everybody knows her from last year, but if she's moved forward at age 4 for Todd Pletcher, definitely got a chance to at least factor in the money. That division too. I mean, the class is the class of division. The class of that race is Raging Sea, but even the top performers, their numbers are a little suspect. So I do think somebody could jump forward in that division as well, and we'll see if Leslie Rose can do it.
All right, well, that's all the time we have for the Racing Roundtable. Don't forget to opt in to our $10 money back offer for Belmont weekend at Twinspires, and we will be back next Tuesday to recap all things Belmont and maybe some other races at Churchill and other tracks this weekend as well. We'll see you then.
When it comes to horse racing, you can never have too much information. With Twinspires, you can place your bets with confidence, whether you use handicapping insights like our Brisnet speed ratings, prime power and past performances, the guidance of our experts' top picks, or just choose a name that catches your eye. Yes! No matter how you pick your horse, bet with Twinspires. And now you can race to victory with Twinspires tournaments.